it's Marguerite. Today I want to talk to you about some of my favorite sewing things. So I've gathered it up here. These are the small things that I use on a daily basis, and they are most important and I can't do without them. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is this. It is doctor's table paper. We all sit on it every time we go to see a doctor, and it's available locally wherever you live. And I use this for tracing patterns. I use it for drawing patterns. It's just table paper and you can see through it, so it's really, really nice. So we've done a lot of things with that. My measuring tools, I use so many different sizes of rulers. I love to have a fairly big one when I'm making an addition on a hem, or I'm adding a seam allowance around something. They come in all different sizes like these for quilting. Again, I use a lot of quilting things. This is a pattern drafting ruler, which is something when I'm drawing a pattern from scratch that I use on a regular basis. And I also like to have a ruler this one's got 3 inches across. It's really kind of a nice thing to have, again, when you're adjusting patterns. All this is so important. As far as a little one goes, this is a seam gauge. And this is really great. It's got this little doodad that goes up and down. So if you are turning up a hem, whether it be on a pair of drapes or on a skirt, you can just adjust and you can work as you go with this tiny little ruler. It stays in your hand really nicely. Measuring tape, these are things that our grandmothers used. I use them all the time. I like the ones that have, if you can find them, that have regular numbers on either side, unless you understand metric. This one is 120 inches long. This is really nice if you've got a pair of drapes, for example, or a quilt that needs to be finished off. But this one is really a handy one. You don't use it real often, but it's a good thing to have. So working this way, I've got bobbins. Now, what students don't realize is that bobbins are brand specific. So you have to have the ones that go with your brand. They're not interchangeable. Your machine will be much happier with it. And also, I like to have 2 dozen bobbins. I just never seem to have enough, because you want to have in your stash a black, a white, a red, whatever colors are in your color family for quick mending. And that way the mending will get done if you don't have to sit and load a bobbin, or first of all, look for the thread. So that is another thing. As far as cutting goes, this is a pair of dressmaker shears. I really like these, and this is the small snips that go with them. I use both of these all the time. The one thing that I can recommend is the sleeve that goes with them. And if you can keep this on here and not drop them. The other thing that's kind of handy to know is if you have a family that's looking for scissors and all that, and they know you put yours away, you can put a high school padlock through here and keep them from being used by anybody, because these are only for fabric. Keep a pair of Dollar Tree scissors out so that they can be used for cutting up whatever the family needs. Moving on from this is a handy dandy thing. This is a buttonhole cutter. And boy, you can get a perfect buttonhole cut with this. It's just absolutely perfect. It works like a little guillotine that way. So that is for buttonholes. Also, this is Fray Block. I really like this product. I do use it on buttonholes after I've gotten all the cutting done, and so that it kind of stays nice and tight. Sometimes I actually put it on before I cut the buttonhole and let it dry. It takes about 10 minutes, but it makes things go through the wash so much easier. Now, this is a rotary cutter. We use this along with a cutting mat, and I like the ones like this that have a safety on it, so that when you push down on it, it cuts and then it covers it up immediately. So you can cut just fine like this, and when you pick it up, the blade is scuffed. So this is just to keep all of us from having a slashed hand or something like that. So this is and this one has a really good grip on it. I like that one. Now, pins. Okay, pins are just really a big deal. I like these little glass head pins. They really are sharp, and so they go through almost anything, and they actually come longer than this if you like longer pins. But with the glass head, you can iron over them. So if you're trying to get like a little corner all perfect, you can pin, and then iron right over the whole thing and steam it, and it's not gonna hurt the iron or the pins. Now, I do keep red tomato. This is something that has been in our families for years and years. I think it was developed by the Victorians. I always keep a few fancy pins that are flat. These are little butterflies for when I'm quartering things and I need a colored marker through them. I keep on here, I put my needles onto a pin cushion like this. You probably can't see these too well. And then these are diaper pins, the old-fashioned kind. They come on a card, and I use these for pulling elastic through casings or ribbons through. They are just the best because they don't come apart. They have a little kind of a latch on the end of them. So that's kind of a cool thing. Now this, find some sort of a magnet because there are pins everywhere on the floor. I have students spilling pins all the time. So any kind of a magnet that you can run and just pick them all up with, and it saves on your back. So there we go, that's the pin situation. Needles, I use Schmidt sewing machine needles on my machine. They are just wonderful, wonderful needles. And you can get them just about anywhere. And these are embroidery needles. And I use these because I can smock with them, I can put up hems, I can do any kind of handwork with them. And the eye on these is big so that it's good for mature eyes. So working back this way, we're gonna do a lot of marking of fabric. So you need some fabric markers. This is one that comes pencil-wise. It comes in all different colors. It does walk out. I love a chalk wheel that has this little wheel on it here because it'll mark just very easily and make a nice straight thin mark, which is what you want because you don't want to goose up any seam allowances or anything that you're doing. So this comes in different ways, but I really like the chalk. You need a red pencil, and this is for tracing patterns. I use that in a combination with a regular number 2 pencil. The number 2 pencil also, I use this a lot. Number 2 pencils wash out of everything. It's my favorite because you have to be so careful when you're doing markers because I've had problems with them at times. I always have a marker of this nature so that when I'm highlighting on pattern instructions, which by the way, I put them in my purse so that if I'm sitting somewhere waiting for Lord knows what, I can sit and I can highlight and I can review the pattern instructions to see how the pattern company says to construct the garment. Now that doesn't necessarily mean I use what they tell us to do. More often than not, I'm changing the order of things. But so that's what that's for. We use our best friend here. This is a ripper. This is a really good one. It fits in your hand really nicely. It stays sharp a whole lot longer than most of them that I've dealt with, but we all use, and we call these our best friends around here. Something else we use here, this is kind of new on the market. It's called a purple thing. Yes, thing. And this is a good for poking and flattening fabric right before it goes into the foot of your machine. It's got a little poker on one end and a flatter one this way. That's really helpful when you need to get really close to things and is readily available. This is a pair of surgical tweezers, and I use them for all kinds of things. Cleaning the machine, getting thread through my serger, cannot do that without this here. So this is like, and you never know when you need this when something is stuck somewhere, whether it's a machine or something you're trying to reverse, it's not working out too well. Also cannot do without these chopsticks. These are just plain old chopsticks. They're nice and smooth. They come with any kind of carryout. And we use these for poking corners, for pushing seams out of something that is in need. So this is something we just use for all the time. Don't forget, with these pencils, you need a pencil sharpener, important. Now, over here on the left, this is something we've not talked about. This is sewing machine grade oil and a little brush. It's the most important thing to keep your sewing machine well swept out, underneath the throat plate, anywhere in the bobbin area, but you want to sweep it out really well. Oil it according to what your book says. Sometimes, some of them say it needs 6 drops of oil and it tells you where. Mine personally just says 1 drop of oil for every 6 to 8 hours of stitching. It just depends on your machine. And there are some that don't mention oiling, and those are the machines that supposedly don't need any oil. So don't worry about that. I have a little holder here that I can stand things up in, you know, right for my little handy dandy, so I don't have all this stuff rolling all over the place. And then the next big thing we have over here are our pressing utensils. These pieces of equipment, and mine are very, very old, are important for all of your seams. Whether you're making a quilt, you're doing draperies, you're doing pillows for your house, you just use them all the time when you're sewing because it makes everything come out nice and smooth and professional looking. So this is a pressing ham. I like this one because it's got wool on one side, and wool is the best conductor of heat. This one is a sleeve board for sleeves. I like a small seam board. This is kind of cool. It's just for sticking in sleeves or anything where you can need a little place, and for ironing, because you can iron right onto that. And this is called a clapper. This is an old-timey tailoring thing that you can either use this for you flatten as you go when you're ironing, and if you hold it down on a seam and let it stay for a minute, it's going to flatten out fabric, particularly if you're fooling with wool. So this is something we can't do without when we're doing tailoring, or even some other more simple tailoring. So this is just all the things. Oh, and a good iron with a nice point on it. This one steams really well. So that's an important thing to have, and that's a personal choice. Some of these are personal choices, but these are the things I use all the time. So happy sewing, and we'll see you next time.